For the Climate Discussion Nexus, I'm John Robson, and welcome to another Readout video based on our weekly Wednesday Wake Up newsletter, in which we say, there they go again. An influential French financial regulator and activist wants to force banks to treat lending to fossil fuel firms as riskier than the banks think it is. After all, government knows best. And the supposedly sober IMF agrees. It says dopey investors are, quote, ignoring climate change risks, end quote. Though, mind you, in France as elsewhere, governments are working hard to drive fossil fuel firms out of business, so there's a climate change risk, one of which shareholders should beware, and so should everybody who likes it when their fridge works or when they flick the switch and the lights go on. And on that point, the newsletter also notes that the Australian government is developing a plan to pay businesses not to use the electricity the government can no longer manage to generate. Not that wind and solar are unreliable any more than governments are. On a more positive note, a shout out to the good folks in Pickled, Ontario, who've been dealing cheerfully with shoveling snow, clearing down trees, and facing a power outage because of a record snowfall on, what's this, June 12th? Yep. But like the snow that fell on Algonquin Park on June 3rd, it's just weather, whereas the next heat wave will definitely be climate change. The newsletter also has a scary story about fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field in the South Atlantic, which definitely portend something ominous unless they don't. It could be a blip or the harbinger of a geomagnetic reversal, this weird thing the planet does where the magnetic poles switch. No, really, they do. In fact, scientists think it's happened about 183 times since the late Cretaceous, though it hasn't happened in the last 750,000 years. So it's due unless it's not. And if it does happen, they say it'll be sudden unless it's gradual. They don't know if it takes 70 years, 7,000, or 12,000. And they also don't know if it causes a deadly rain of X-rays onto the surface of the planet, or whether the atmosphere somehow changes to screen them out. You get the idea? The science is uncertain. But nobody's claiming there's a huge consensus, and nobody's calling anybody a bunch of dirty names, because this issue, despite its potential importance, has not yet been contaminated by politics. Also because apparently we'll all be dead long before then, at least if you believe headlines like this one, quote, collapse of civilization is the most likely outcome, top climate scientists. Now look, if people want a reasonable debate around climate, alarmists in particular should be brushing this kind of stuff off, including questioning designating as top climate scientists whoever takes the writer's own campfire scary story view, instead of using this kind of noise to panic people into believing that whatever just happened, or didn't, proves once again that we are all going to die. Speaking of which, if we are all going to die, are we all going to drown? Our latest 1919 or 2019 quiz goes to Kingston, Ontario, and we show you precipitation, rain and snow from last year and from 100 years before, and say, spot the extreme weather if you can. And while you're at it, have a look at the archive, because there's a treasure trove of the good, the bad, and the ugly on climate change science and policy on our blog. And we also have a lot of videos, which you can also find on YouTube at ClimateDN, and which now include the new Short Takes feature hosted by my colleague Kiara. By the way, I want to include a shout out to some other friends of ours from around the world, California to the Netherlands, who noted that we didn't mention them last time in thanking all the viewers, readers, and supporters from around the globe. Which is, of course, my cue to say, if you find our work useful and you're not already a backer, please go to the donate page and make a contribution. Big or small, one time or monthly, it's all a big help to us in spreading the word. For the Climate Discussion Nexus, I'm John Robson.